episode of the Bayroom podcast. We're on episode 4 of the Dear Diary series, the last episode of the Dear Diary series. Um, this series was very interesting. This was a moment for me to kind of catch you guys up on what's been going on in my life. And since, last season, this past year, some of the changes that I've been experiencing in my personal life as a mother and just as a woman in general. And so I really wanted to, get the perspectives of the people closest to me, my diaries, and also, have a couple episodes where I could sit and reflect alone and speak to you guys one on one about the many, many things I've learned over the last year in this stage of my life. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. This next series is going to be a treat. Before we get into that, I owe you guys this episode. I am late. I needed to recharge. After the event, I went into full drive of like trying to figure out how to um, capitalize on that moment and the love and the support that I got from everyone that attended the event really motivated me to try to like figure out how to really make this a thing and invite more people into this space in a more intentional way in real life. So stay tuned for that because we have some really, really dope things coming your way. But for now, let's get into some things. Today I want to have a real conversation about something that many of us are navigating. Co-parenting, the C word. It's easy to feel like if you're co-parenting, that means something went wrong. Um, that the relationship didn't work out. So now, you're left with this arrangement that doesn't feel ideal at all, actually. And, you know, that's where I've been. So I understand it. And, I wanted to take this episode and take this time to encourage anyone that's going through it, whether you're a mother or a father. Um, I felt like it was important um, to address this because, Bayroom was built on the idea of the Black family and rebuilding the Black family and uplifting the Black family. And so I really had to figure out a way because that reality was a bit different for me. So I had to figure out a way to shift the conversation a bit to make it a little bit more relatable to my experience and to the experience of so many other people. Um, so yeah, I want to shift that perspective today. And I want to talk about how co-parenting is not a failure. How it can actually be a way to create something new, something healthier, and something that still provides a strong foundation for our children. Um, so this isn't about my specific situation, but more so about what I've learned over the course of this time. And I want to share with anyone who's in this journey with me. So whether you're co-parenting now, whether you're preparing for it, or just trying to understand it a bit better, let's get into it. We got to talk about this idea that co-parenting means failure. Society loves to push the narrative that a two-parent household is the only version of success. And while in a perfect world, sure, maybe that's the goal and, that's the way that we sort of plan our lives or would like to plan our lives. But we don't live in a perfect world. So the reality is that some relationships just aren't meant to last forever. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you've failed as a parent, as a romantic partner, as a person. If anything, staying in unhealthy relationships just for the sake of family can sometimes do more harm than good. A child that is raised in a home with tension, with resentment, or just two people who don't align, what does that actually teach them about love? What does that actually teach them about relationships? Sometimes the healthiest thing that we can do as parents is recognize when it's time to transition and commit to making that transition as smooth as possible for our children. So instead of seeing co-parenting as a last resort, what if we saw it as an opportunity to create a dynamic where your child sees two people choosing peace, choosing growth, and still choosing to show up for them, even if the romantic relationship is no longer or has ended. Now, let's be real, co parenting is work. And the majority of any relationship, especially romantic relationships, do not work out because people don't want to do the work. So it's not just we broke up, let's be friends and raise this baby together. It takes effort, it takes maturity, it takes patience. Communication is everything in a co-parenting situation. And, I'm not saying it has to be perfect because 9 times out of 10 is not going to be perfect, but it does need to be intentional. And I think like intentional is the word for the season. It's the word for the year, at least in my year, this year for me. There has to be a willingness from both people to make it work, to make the dynamic work. Boundaries are key. Let's be honest, there can still be emotions there, hurt feelings, past disappointments, things left unsaid. And if you're not careful, those types of things can spill over into the co-parenting relationship. So you have to separate personal from parental. Personal from parental. The romantic relationship is over, may have ended, but that doesn't free us of the responsibility as parents. Parenting is a lifelong commitment, a lifelong relationship. One thing that I've learned is that you have to accept what you cannot change. We hear it all the time, but literally, like, accept what you cannot change. You cannot control the other person, the other parent, how they choose to show up, but you can control how you respond, how you set boundaries, and how you create stability for your child. When you focus on what you can control, you stop being frustrated over what you cannot control. I'm going to say that again. When you focus on what you can control, you stop being frustrated about the things that you cannot control. One of the biggest mindset shifts that I had to have to make this work is understanding that family doesn't, or not even just to make it work, to accept this new reality, is that family doesn't have to just look one way. So when I'm talking about the Black family, initially I'm talking about mother and father and child, one roof. But like I said, the reality is that things are not going to always pan out to be that way. So understanding that it doesn't have to be mom, dad, kids in one house. Family is more so about love, care, commitment, and about being present and both parties being present. That's what a family unit is. A two-home dynamic doesn't have to mean instability. It can mean more love, more exposure, more people in a child's life who love them and want to see them win. But that only works when the adults in the equation um, do the work. And that sometimes doesn't only just mean the mother and the father. Sometimes that means the extensions of the mother and the father. I can say for one, like the support of my mother during this time has been crucial. Sort of having a third party who's has not just my best interest at heart, but my child's best interest at heart, and also his father's. So that's crucial. So it really, not everyone has that support system, but when there are other people involved, it's crucial for everyone to just work together, have the same focus, have the same goal, the child. So instead of focusing on what's missing, I encourage you to focus on the possibilities, what's possible in this new dynamic. Focus on how you can create a version of family that works for you and your child. So that can mean structured schedules, intentional communication, and I'm talking about between parents, or just an agreement that no matter what, you'll never speak negatively about the other parent in front of the child. Because, things happen. We want to be realistic here. But in general, you want to make sure that what's most important is what you're relaying to your child, what you're doing in front of the child, the effort that you're putting in front of the child. So small things like that go a long way in making this dynamic work. So I know some of you, that are listening might be like, oh, that sounds great. But what if the other parent isn't on the same page? Because it's not always, sometimes that's the reality. Like you have one parent that's just trying to make everything difficult. And I hear that. Like I said, co-parenting isn't always ideal. It's usually not ideal. Some relationships are just more challenging than others. So, with that in mind, maybe the other co-parent is inconsistent. Maybe they're difficult to communicate with. Maybe you're carrying most of the weight, which is tough. But again, what can you control? You can control the environment that you create for you and your child when they're with you. You can control how much peace you allow into your life. And you can make the decision not to allow bitterness and resentment consume you. You can only focus on yourself, basically, because at the end of the day, all of those things, even being hyper focused on what the other parent is or is not doing, is going to drain the life out of you, and in turn affect your child. So to wrap this up, I just want to say co-parenting is not a failure. It's just a different way of showing up. It's a different way of being a family. And when we shift our mindset, when we let go of this idea that things should have been a certain way, we can really open up ourselves to what they can be. And I'm not promoting co-parenting. Ideally, again, this word ideally, you want to do all that you can to make it work. But I'm just addressing the fact that sometimes it's just not possible. If you take anything from this episode, I'd want it to be that your children are bigger than your children's well-being is bigger than your past hurt, your past disappointments, what you feel like things should have been like. So what matters now is what you do now with the circumstance, with the decision to split. What do you do? Where do you go from here? How do you show up? How do you create peace in your home? No matter what the other parent does. And how do you decide to embrace the reality of the situation with love and with maturity and with intentionality? I think that's it. This is a short but a goodie. I wanted to get that off. And it took me a while to even it took me a while to even release this one because I felt unqualified. If I'm being totally honest, I did not feel qualified to have this conversation or to even just like be given pointers on this because it hasn't even been a year and I'm still learning. I will say though, like for the most part, I feel like both parties have been doing their best. Minimal issues. And I think that's really just because we both are focused on ourselves and the well-being of our child. And I think that that's key. I think that that is key. So I think that's it. Thank you for watching. And tune in for the next series, Dear Black Man, because it's going to be good. This is where we get serious. This is where we really tap in to the Black man's perspective. And I think that's what we were missing last season. We talked a lot about the woman's perspective and what we're going through and what our journeys are like, which is very important. But I'm really, really excited to hear from our men. I've been having, outside of the podcast, I've been having some really dope conversations with other men just about their experiences with Black women, experiences with women from other races or other ethnicities, and just their experience in general when it comes to family and love. And so I am super excited. We're going to be talking to married men, single men, fathers, single fathers. It's going to be a time. So look out for that. Look out for that release. It'll be 2 weeks from now. We're releasing the first episode of the Dear Black Man series, and I'm so excited. But that is all. I hope you guys have a great week, or if you're watching this on a Friday, a great weekend. Whatever day of the week you're watching this, I wish nothing but the best for you, period.